December 29th, 2025 wasn't just another day at the International Space Station. SpaceX's Cargo Dragon fired its thrusters for over 19 minutes straight, shattering Russia's decades-long monopoly on keeping the ISS alive. Here's why that matters. Just 3 years ago, Russia's space chief made a very public threat. "Pull your support for Ukraine, or we let the station fall." Back then, it wasn't an empty threat. America genuinely had no alternative. So what changed? How did SpaceX accomplish what Russia swore was impossible? Let's break it down. The ISS is constantly falling. Not dramatically, about 100 meters per day, but relentlessly. Atmospheric drag at 400 kilometers might seem negligible, but do the math. Without regular boosts, you've got maybe 12 to 18 months before the station can't recover. Back when NASA's space shuttle was still flying, this was routine maintenance. But when the shuttle program ended in 2011, that job fell entirely to Russia's Progress cargo ships. Every few months, Progress would fire up and push the station back to a safe altitude. Russia had this capability exclusively for over a decade. Nobody else could do it. Russia invaded in February 2022. The US responded with weapons, intelligence, and crushing sanctions targeting Russian aerospace. Dmitry Rogozin, then head of Roscosmos, saw his opening. He hammered the same message over and over. "Without progress, you can't keep the ISS up there. Lift the sanctions or watch it fall." This wasn't bluffing. If Russia had actually withdrawn, NASA would have faced a genuine emergency. 2 years of operational life maximum, 3 decades of collaboration, billions in infrastructure, all of it at risk. Here's where it gets interesting. Cargo Dragon wasn't designed for this job. The spacecraft carried just enough fuel for its core mission: dock, stay attached, undock, land safely. Using that limited supply for extended burns meant gambling with re-entry safety margins. Worse yet, Dragon's thrusters weren't positioned right. While docked, the thrust angles created efficiency losses that would require much longer burns to match what Progress could do in minutes. Russia's confidence made perfect sense. Dragon simply wasn't built for station reboosts. November 2024. They ran a quick test. 5 minutes, existing thrusters, no modifications. The result? The station went up 1.1 kilometers. Proof of concept confirmed. Now came the real work. SpaceX engineers developed what they called the Boost Kit, a dedicated propulsion system mounted in Dragon's trunk section. 2 Draco thrusters, positioned to fire perfectly aligned with the station's direction of travel. No more efficiency losses. The genius part? Complete system separation. The Boost Kit carried its own propellant supply, 6 tanks of hydrazine and nitrogen tetroxide, all thermally insulated for space. Dragon's return fuel stayed untouched. 0 risk to landing safety. And here's where SpaceX really flexed. The 2 Draco engines? Refurbished from the Crew 8 mission. The 6 propellant tanks? Repurposed test hardware from 2020. They built this thing from recycled parts and still achieved 1.5 times the delta V of a brand new Progress spacecraft. December 29th, 2025. Dragon CRS-33, which had been docked since August, executed its Boost Kit burn. 19 minutes and change. The station rose 11.6 miles at apogee, 1.9 miles at perigee. This wasn't just longer than previous Dragon attempts. This exceeded anything Progress had ever done in a single maneuver. Ever. Even more remarkable, this was Dragon's 5th reboost during this single docking period. A 6th was already scheduled before undocking. Progress typically manages 1, maybe 2 reboosts over a 6-month stay. November 27, 2025. Baikonur Cosmodrome. During a Soyuz launch, part of the service structure at Pad 31/6 collapsed into the flame trench. That's currently the only pad configured for both crewed Soyuz and cargo Progress missions to the ISS. Russia had to cancel Progress MS-33, scheduled for December. Next possible launch? March 2026 at the earliest. Some experts think repairs could take 1 to 2 years. Let that sink in. If SpaceX had delayed this upgrade program by even a few months, the ISS would be in serious trouble right now. Progress vehicles already docked can't handle repeated reboosts. They need to preserve fuel for safe deorbit. Without Dragon's new capability, the station would be slowly dropping with no reliable solution until Baikonur gets fixed. The crisis Russia threatened to create in 2022? SpaceX was ready when the real crisis actually hit. SpaceX currently operates 8 Dragon 2 spacecraft total, 5 Crew Dragons and 3 Cargo Dragons. These are the last ones they'll ever build. Production stopped in 2022 when resources shifted to Starship. But each spacecraft is designed for roughly 15 missions through refurbishment. That matters because NASA plans to deorbit the ISS around 2030 to 2031. After 3 decades of continuous operation, the systems are aging and maintenance costs keep climbing. Dragon will handle the Endgame. Crew Dragons will evacuate astronauts. 5 active spacecraft could bring home a reduced crew in just 2 rotations over several months. Cargo Dragons face the bigger challenge, retrieving tens of tons of critical hardware, experiments, and irreplaceable scientific data before the controlled deorbit. With 3 active cargo vehicles launching from Kennedy and Cape Canaveral, SpaceX can sustain the mission cadence needed to save billions of dollars worth of scientific knowledge. 3 years ago, Russia held a monopoly on keeping the ISS alive. Today, SpaceX doesn't just match that capability, they've surpassed it with a system built from spare parts in under a year. That 19-minute burn on December 29th proved something crucial. Independence in space isn't about luck. It's about preparation. When the launch pad collapsed at Baikonur, Dragon was already ready. If you found this valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to New Space Review for space industry analysis that matters. Drop a comment. What other SpaceX innovations should we cover? Thanks for watching. Click now to see how SpaceX solved another critical Starship challenge. SpaceX found Genius V3 fix. 1 pipe fails, 32 still work. Shocked NASA. Booster 18 exploded right where it hurt most, the liquid oxygen tank. That's where dozens of fuel lines converge, where one failure can trigger a chain reaction. The culprit? SpaceX's old design used shared manifolds, multiple engines feeding from the same pipe. When that pipe failed, every connected engine died instantly. V3 changed the game completely. Each of the 33 Raptors now gets its own dedicated line. One engine fails, the other 32 keep running. Traditional aerospace engineers thought this was insane, Too complex, too many connection points, too risky. SpaceX proved them wrong. The explosion wasn't random. Inside that oxygen tank, you've got dozens of pipes packed together where temperatures swing from minus 297 degrees Fahrenheit to engine heat in seconds. One structural crack and everything unravels. SpaceX asked a simple question. If the human body evolved redundant blood vessels to prevent strokes, why should rockets have single points of failure? That question led to a complete redesign. SpaceX moved the V3 liquid oxygen landing tank right next to the quick disconnect, basically as close to the refueling point as physically possible. Shorter distance means faster fuel flow, less pressure loss, fewer things that can go wrong during those final landing seconds. Then they added support struts. Sounds primitive, right? But these struts solve a problem that's plagued rockets since the 1960s: vibrations. When you've got a 20-story tower filled with cryogenic fuel hitting atmospheric turbulence at supersonic speeds, everything inside wants to shake loose. Without those struts, the tank shifts a few millimeters. That's enough to crack a weld or trigger another B-18-style explosion. During landing burns, when 13 engines fire simultaneously and the booster flips from horizontal to vertical, those struts prevent the landing tank from becoming a 1,500-pound wrecking ball. The landing tanks still connect to those white composite pressure vessels you see throughout the booster. Eventually, SpaceX wants full autogenous pressurization, using hot engine gases instead of stored helium. More efficient, lighter, simpler. But they're not rushing it. One failed pressurization during landing means $100 million crashes into the Gulf of Mexico. Those pressure vessels got upgraded too. You can spot the new ones coming out of Star Factory. They've got that orange-red outer shell. These vessels don't just pressurize tanks. They spin-start the Raptor turbopumps, store nitrogen for thruster control, and support structural integrity during flight. Most people don't realize these vessels operate at thousands of psi while being hit with cryogenic